Welcome back to another episode of From the Couch Sports. This is episode 23, and I'm your host, Connor. If you like the content, please like and subscribe to the channel. I want to talk about this kind of weekend we just had in sports. A few really fun combat events that happened, and then want to kind of recap on where we're sitting as far as the Eastern and Western Conference Finals go. So to start things off on Saturday, we had this exhibition event that Floyd Mayweather was putting on, and kind of surprising, like not a lot of people knew this was even going on. It happened in the middle of the day on Saturday, and this was also something that had been, I think it was delayed a week or two because someone in Abu Dhabi, like I believe the president had passed away, so they delayed that, and it was a really interesting setup because, they originally said that this was going to take place on like the top of a building or something like that. And then, it took place in seemingly like a normal event center. But there was some fun fights on this card. Baidu Jack had a knockout win, I believe. And then we had Anderson Silva fight on this card. He got, at this point, I think this is his third boxing bout as of recently, within the last 2 years or so. And I mean, he looks really good as a boxer. The thing about this one though is he was fighting the guy by the name of Bruno Machado, and this is a MMA fighter that's at like a significantly smaller weight class. I believe he fights 145, 155, somewhere in that range. And in the octagon or in the ring, he didn't look like he was that much smaller than Anderson Silva, but he was definitely smaller. And Anderson Silva just dominated this exhibition fight. He even dropped him in one of the mid rounds with a right hand, kind of a similar shot to what he had knocked out Tito Ortiz with. But that was a fun fight to watch. I always love tuning in to see Anderson Silva, especially like at this new stage. He's 47 years old and he's still continuing to look amazing in the combat sports avenue of things. And it's funny because they're trying to set up this, I've seen a lot of headlines on the media recently saying that Anderson Silva may have put himself in position to fight Jake Paul, which I just think is hilarious because it's like Anderson Silva can fight whoever he wants. If you were going to say Anderson Silva versus an actual boxer, I think that would make a lot of sense. Anderson Silva doesn't need to earn anything to fight Jake Paul. I think that's kind of crazy. And it doesn't really seem like Jake Paul has entertained the idea too much. And rightfully so, Anderson Silva would be a significant step up in terms of competition from anybody that Jake Paul's fought, regardless of the fact that he's 47 years old. Jake Paul's trying to fight Michael Bisping. Michael Bisping's in his 40s as well, but he's got one eye. I believe he's had multiple knee replacements and everything. It's like, Jake Paul was wanting, a slighter step up, I think, because Michael Bisping is a better stand-up fighter than Tyron Woodley. He's a bigger weight class as well. He's also got one eye, so making that fight doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But with Anderson Silva, you've got a guy who's the right weight class, has the decorated background as far as a striker. This isn't a guy who's got a wrestling base, but a lot of power because he's a great athlete like a Tyron Woodley. I think this fight would look a lot different. I would be very interested to see them make this fight. And if Jake Paul were to beat Anderson Silva, that's like a huge step in terms of his career and everything like that. Like beating Anderson Silva, that's significantly better than anybody he's ever beat. And I think that would do a lot for him as far as his career goes in the boxing realm of things. And then also on this same fight card, the main event, of course, was Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Mayweather was fighting a guy by the name of Don Moore. Don Moore is undefeated. I believe he was 18-0, somewhere in that range. And the interesting thing about Don Moore is he used to actually be a training partner of Floyd Mayweather's. And he also was trained by Floyd's uncle, Roger Mayweather, as well. So they had a lot of, history together. And that, and this was an exhibition bout as well. So it's not, I don't think it was like there's no beef or anything going into this fight. It's just, good fight for them to have fun out there and everything like that. And Floyd definitely had some fun. Like the guy was responding to commentary during the fight. There was one point where he grabbed the ring card girl's like ring card and was walking around the ring with it. And then like just the way he was fighting, he fought. You could tell he had nothing, like he wasn't scared of being hurt or anything in there. A lot of the fight, he had his hands down and he was just walking Don Moore down. Don Moore tried to throw some heat when he could, but Floyd Mayweather's just so hard to get to touch, and Floyd started just teeing off on him as the rounds went on. You could tell like Floyd was actually trying to get him out of there, and it went 8 rounds. Since it's an exhibition, I don't think they had like an outcome, a winner or anything, even though Floyd won every round basically. In the 8th round, he dropped Moore with a hard body shot. I think it was like a left hook to the liver. And Moore dropped and then got up, and then Floyd was just walking him down, and he was trying to go for the finish. It was a very interesting fight, for Floyd, and I think it's fun because, obviously Floyd's 50-0. He's got this, legendary, a lot of people call him the GOAT and everything, but he's still able to make a lot of money going out there and, taking these kind of exhibition bouts and in fights. It's not like he's not threatened to lose anything. Nothing could really hurt his career at this point. He's just getting paydays. So I thought that was a fun fight. He also mentioned that he's trying to do another bout similar to this later in the year, also in Abu Dhabi. So that'll be interesting to see who he fights if he fights again. And then I want to move on, talk a little bit about the UFC card. In my last video, we talked about a couple of the prospects and everything like that, the fights I was interested to see and whatnot. But to start things off, Joseph Holmes, he had a flying knee and he dropped his opponent Alan Medavsky, and then he ended up choking him out, finishing him off. The flying knee looks like it was going to put him out. He was still able to stay in the fight, and then he got choked out. So this was Holmes' second UFC bout and his first win. I think this was a big one. I want to say he fought like Jamie Pickett in his very first bout, so he had a very tough challenge there. And then Jailton Almeida, this is a guy I think is going to be potential, I don't want to talk too soon and say potential champion, but the sky is the limit for this guy. He's got so much potential talent. He normally fights at 205. His opponent fell out in this bout, so he moved up and fought heavyweight. And he fought Parker Porter. And every one of his fights I've seen, he just takes the guy down, has some insane powerful ground and pound, and then he works his way for a submission. And that's exactly what he did in this fight. At heavyweight, nonetheless, facing someone who was a legit 265. So, that's crazy scary to see a guy who's this good, who can move up and down in weight class. I think 205 is probably where he stays at and tries to pursue a belt and everything. But nonetheless, I think it's going to be a ton of fun to see his career progress. And then the co-main event I wanted to talk about is Ponzinibbio versus Pereira. This was a close fight, a split decision win. I thought it was a ton of fun to watch. Pereira ended up winning the fight. Although it was a really close fight. I think you could have kind of gone either way with it. But Pereira won the fight. He tried to call out Jorge Masvidal, saying that Masvidal ended up messaging his wife online. Masvidal has refuted the rumors. Actually, kind of proved with evidence that it was the reverse of what happened. So that was interesting. I think Pereira fighting someone like Masvidal would be a cool matchup. But based on their hype and everything, Masvidal's fighting on big pay-per-view cards. I don't think Pereira's got the the recognition, at least at this point in his career, to warrant fighting against a guy like Masvidal. And then the main event was Holly Holm versus Ketlin Vieira. And this was kind of controversial. It wasn't the most entertaining fight, but in my opinion, and I think in a lot of others' opinions, Holly Holm probably did enough to win this fight. Based on the judges' scorecards, she didn't end up winning the fight. She lost via split decision. But it was There in the second round, Vieira like almost choked Holly out. But outside of that, like Holly, she had way more strikes. She had over 10 minutes of control time. Her game, her style of recently is a lot of kind of grappling against the cage, holding her opponent there, and then mixing up with strikes. She's not like um, fighting the exact same way she has her entire career. But regardless, she should have won here. So it's kind of a tough spot now. Like, where does she go from here? Because had she gotten the win, she probably would be in position to fight for a title. And then Ketlin Vieira, she's probably wanting to fight for the title as well. But this wasn't really a dominant win or anything. It was just like, she won via split decision in a fight that a lot of people disagreed with the outcome. So that's how that ended up playing out. And then I want to move on. I want to talk on some of the NBA that we've had recently. So I'm recording this. The Heat Celtics is pretty much about to end. It's a 20-point game. It's been a 30-point game for most of the game. Like, the Heat scored like 33, 34 points in the first half. Just a horrible offensive performance. Tyler Hero was out today for the Heat. But on the flip side, Marcus Smart was out for the Celtics. So they both had a key player missing, Defensive Player of the Year and then Sixth Man of the Year. But no excuse there. It's like the Heat are. This series has been weird because it's like the Heat are kind of winning by a lot or they're getting blown out. That's none of these games. Like, the games on the, if you look at the total score, some of them have been closed out in garbage time. But for the most part, these have been 20-point swings in each game. So going into Game 5, we're going to be 2-2 back in Miami. I'm curious to see how this goes. Like, in this Game 4, the Heat didn't have a single starter score 10 points. It was just awful. I think they had one or two starters even score 0. So just not a good look for Miami. And then Boston, they had a good game. Tatum, I think he had 32 points in this game. And then the game before this, the one that Miami won, they looked a lot better. They were able to stop a Jaylen Brown 40-point game. They were able to win despite Jimmy Butler not playing most of the second half. So that was good. They still have home court advantage, which is also big time for Miami, because they were able to take a game back in Boston. But now they're going to go back to Miami, tied series, Game 5. It's going to be a lot on the line from here. If Miami's able to take this game, they take up a 3-2 lead, and then they're one game away, and they've got 2 opportunities to do it. But on the flip side, Boston's been looking really good. Game 3, Tatum didn't have the greatest performance. I think he only had like 10 points, and then he had like this just strange play where it looked like he had a serious injury. He went into the locker room and then came back out and kept playing. So that was very interesting. And then, so going into Game 5, tied series, it's kind of all on the line. This is, Miami's still in reach of winning this series, but so is Boston. I think this is probably a 7-game series. It's going to be going down to the wire. Well, on the flip side, the Warriors-Mavs series is kind of the opposite. The Warriors took a 3-0 lead in Game 3 in Dallas. A lot of people are thinking maybe Dallas can replicate what they did against Phoenix. They went down 2-0 against Phoenix, and then they ended up winning 2 at home, getting back into the series, and then eventually winning the series. This is just it's different because the Warriors they're not the Suns. They're not collapsing like the Suns did in that last round. And the Warriors are like picking everything up all at once, like when they need to. Like, Klay Thompson is looking great. He had 19 in Game 3. Steph had 31 points, 11 assists. Andrew Wiggins had 27 points. Like, just a crazy game. There's so much depth and a lot of players just stepping up. Andrew Wiggins has been like one of the best players on the Warriors this playoffs. Like, he's one of the reasons that they're winning games. Yesterday he just had, he's making a bunch of plays defensively and offensively. He had the poster, one of the best dunks of the year on Luka in Game 3. So seeing the Warriors, it looks like they're probably going to finish this in a sweep or a 5-game gentleman's sweep. Probably the next two games, it's over, and then the Warriors get to sit and wait for a few games until they can see who they play, whether it's the Heat or the Celtics. Regardless, it's going down to the wire. It's a ton of fun to watch these games. Although, like, I don't want to see the blowouts, to be honest. I want a close series. For the Heat Celtics, it's crazy because you think more of these games were going down to the wire, but they're not. It's just swings. One game the Heat blow the Celtics out, the next game it's the reverse. So for that series, I'm really hoping Game 5 that the teams can come together and put up a close game. And then, again, I just want the good health for both of these series. I don't want anybody big to get hurt or anything that can, alter what eventually happens there. But thanks for tuning in. If you like the content, please subscribe to the channel. Let me know what your thoughts are on the fights this weekend, the UFC card, the boxing bouts, the exhibitions, and then what do you think about the playoffs so far? Do you think it's going to be Warriors, Celtics, or Heat? Obviously that's going to be the outcome. But who do you think is going to win it all? Just let me know. Leave some feedback, and thanks for tuning in.